Hi, everyone. In today's episode, I get to sit down with a very special guest, Sam Cahoon. We chat about his journey of stepping into his own power and what it means to live authentically. So, if you're ready, go ahead and keep on listening. I promise you won't want to miss this. And because I don't say it during the rest of the episode, if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast, which is also now available on YouTube. This will be the second episode available there, but more is coming very soon. I hope you enjoy.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm so excited to be having Sam Cahoon on my podcast episode. He is my bestie-in-law, and he's over in New York City, the big ol' apple. And so I'm super excited that he was able to join us from the East Coast, even though the West Coast is the West Coast. But we're going to have a little conversation about stepping into your power and how Sam has applied that to his life, and we're going to talk about his story, and I'm so thankful for him to be on here. So welcome, Sam.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Super excited to be here, and I'm also just excited to share a little bit in my story today about how your podcasts have actually helped me in my story and kind of the topic of like reclaiming my power, especially over the last year. So super excited to chat with you. Thrilled to be your bestie-in-law and that we share the one and only Allison, who is such a bright light in our lives, and just excited to show up here vulnerably, show up authentically as possible, and also just have a fun time chatting because we don't get to chat too much.
No, we don't. We should make that happen more, but we don't get to chat that often because you're such a busy bee. And I was just like going through your Instagram and stuff like that, doing the little light stalking that one must do for podcasting. And you're so busy. And so I guess that's kind of like my first question. How do you kind of bring balance into your life with all of the things that you do? And how do you do all of that?
That is so kind. And I think you just dived right into one of my weekly therapy topics. I am someone who, I try to find as much magic as possible from life. And so I think there's so many elements of that from, being in New York City, which has so much to do. I'm huge into like things like all the arts, poetry, comedy, theater, concerts, to spending time with friends, to going on fun weekend adventures, to, working out in gym and running, to career. There's so many different passions that there are to pursue. One, here in this location, and then two, me as a person, I've always loved being involved in a lot of things at once. And so something that I am continually working on is how can I have more rest in my life? How can I do things that bring me joy and connect with people that I really love and go on adventures that are fun, but also give myself the time to slow down and to spend more time with myself and to not feel like I have to be doing things all the time. So that's something I'm working on right now. But I think that for me, one, if you look at my Instagram, one, that is like a curation for sure. I feel like it's definitely the highlight reel, and it doesn't show so many of the moments where it's just me. And I'm definitely one to, mostly just show fun things that are going on. But two, I think it's just because I really look for all the magic possible in life and love to just make the most out of what I'm up to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, you have one of the most beautifully curated Instagrams I've ever seen. I was like, this is gorgeous. This is fascinating. Yeah. It's really, I think that's one thing that is kind of hard is when you are someone that like loves life so much and wants to experience so much joy. It's kind of hard to like remember that like there is joy in resting. There is joy in finding the balance in all of it. So I guess what is kind of like one area of your life where you are finding maybe like those secret moments of joy that you haven't been sharing with?
Okay, the secret moments of joy that like really bring me life. First one that I think of is the daily phone call with mom. There is literally nothing more like rejuvenating to me than just catching up with my mom at the end of the day, the daily yap sesh, if you will, and sharing like our roses and thorns with each other, asking what she's up to, how is teaching going, how are the little sibs doing, what's been bringing her joy, what's tough, and then she'll ask me about my day, and we'll just have so much fun connecting. I'd say that's like a moment of every day that I really look forward to. And then the second one, the thing that like continually brings me back to myself and something that I really want to share today is like opening up all these poetry books on this shelf. I feel like the only books I really buy these days are poetry, because I know if I read a fiction book, I'll read it once and then not open it again. But with poetry, it's like I go back to it again and again and again. And just remembering how much wisdom and beauty there is in opening those up, I think that's like some of the things that are bringing me joy right now.
Yeah, I have recently also been trying to get into poetry, mainly because Allison, when she went out to go visit you, I think that's when she brought back a poetry book, and it's like it's called What Kind of Woman by Kate Bear, and it's just like it is so good. And I used to be really into poetry when I was in high school, and then just like, when you go to college and stuff like that, once you're not in English classes or anything, like you kind of like don't gravitate towards it. But I've been picking this up and I'm like, this is like, and then like funny sometimes. And like, it's just been so much fun. So it's interesting to hear that you're like, I'm going to read all these poetry books. What's your favorite one so far that you've read?
Yeah, I have two favorite authors, and I love that Allison brought back a poetry book for you. One is, her name is April Green, and it's all of this like self-love poetry. If you are like in a new chapter or reinventing yourself, or you went through a breakup, or you're just trying to like find more life, April
Mm-hmm.
Green, hit her up at Barnes and Noble, Amazon, any independent bookstore that you can find her. It's so inspiring. And then the second one that I actually have a little poem I want to share is from Cleo Wade. She is also an amazing poet with just some really vulnerable, beautiful, life perspective changing writing that I love to go back to.
Yeah. And you said did you have one that you wanted to share?
Okay, I totally did. So I know like the topic of this is like finding your power, reclaiming your power. And a big theme for me last year was like looking for light wherever possible. And for context, start of last year, January 2024, I was doing the most. I was working full time remotely in my marketing job, and that was about 9 to 5. And then also 3 to 4 days a week just to make ends meet, I was working at Equinox from 5 to 11. So it'd often be 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. days, often waking up at 7, going to bed at midnight, and just the whole day grinding. And it was really tough. And then end of the month of January, I was laid off from my marketing gig and continued working at Equinox. And there was this really big theme of like, wow, this is tough. I was already struggling working remotely, really not getting the social connection I was needing, feeling like I was struggling. You know, there were a lot of things that were just really tough, and I started to really dive into that victim mentality. And so I actually listened to your podcast last year that focused on victim mentality, and it was all about like changing your lens from the world is against you, you are a victim of other people's actions and all the things that are going against you, to looking for gratitude and changing the lens to see that actually things are working out in my favor, and I am the chooser of my own fate. And so I made one of my like words for the year like light or magic, and just like looking
I love that.
for that wherever possible. I Because I saw that there were so many things that were trying to bat me down, universe was trying to get me a little bit. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna like make my quest like looking for light. And I was reading this book called Heart Talk by Cleo Wade, and it talked about like finding your light and what that looks like.
I'm so happy that you chose like a word for the year. I think a lot of times people focus on like a full on vision of what they want. But I think sometimes if you're like, I'm just looking for, like for you, like I'm just looking for the light, I'm just looking for the magic in the world, like it kind of opens up your like worldview to be like, oh, just sitting here at this park and I'm just seeing like all of like the love that's in the world, instead of like being like, oh, I see that couple is arguing or that baby is screaming. You're like, no, I just see this woman who's walking her dog and is so happy in this moment. Or look at that cute bug that's on that leaf. Like you just see the light, you see the magic when you start to like have those types of words. So I think that's so I love that idea that you did.
Thanks. Yeah, that I so agree. I think like just looking at life through a completely different lens and finding as many opportunities for gratitude as possible rather than further confirming your own bias that
Mhm.
things are so challenging. Even if they are, you can recognize that and still look for that light. So I'll actually take a step back. There's this quote that I thought really connected well to it, that victim mentality and different lens. And it's from Paul Coelho. And it says, I can choose either to be a victim of the world or an adventurer in search of treasure. It's all a question of how I view my life. And so, a few things that I started doing, I would start hopping into bed and I would start thinking of the things that I was grateful for that day or just grateful for in general. I'd picture each of my siblings, picture my parents, picture my friends, start thinking through that. When I was working at Equinox part time, it would treasure each time I said hi to. I was a front desk girly,
Mhm.
just up there saying hi, welcoming people to the club, and being all flirty. And every time I would have like a really fun or quality conversation, whether it was with a coworker or with someone who was there to work out, I would take that as, wow, how blessed am I to like have this awesome interaction and how fun was that? I just started to look for any chance I could of those moments of casual magic where I could find gratitude. So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's
And I'll go
awesome.
back to that light quote in a second because I feel like it relates to something else better. But
Yeah,
that's kind of what I
yeah,
was thinking.
yeah. Did you ever find the poem that you wanted to read?
So it's kind of about like shining your own light and just that can take shape in any form. So this is how it goes. Light is always light, no matter the vessel. Do not put pressure on yourself to shine in a specific form. Light can be big, small, loud, or a whisper, but it is always light. Allow your light to take its own shape and shine in its own way. When we embody our own unique light, we have the power to bring healing energy and clarity to any situation. Light allows us to see things for what they are so that we may proceed with understanding, compassion, and grace. We can navigate our journey with much more confidence when we see the world through the light we shine on it. And that is from Cleo Wade's book, Heart Talk. And what stuck out to me about that is that even on the days that are hard for you or when you're struggling, if you just like are shining your own light a little bit and bring positivity to a situation or look for that gratitude, I think even just the smallest bits you can recognize or bring to a situation and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's also one of those things where, like, when you are able to, because it's not about like having that like false positivity. It's like if you're having a shit day, you're having a shit day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're like, sometimes, finding the joy that day was just a little bit rough, but it's like, but when you can like wake up the next day and be like, okay, this isn't going to be a pattern. I can find more light. I can find the magic. I can find the joy in my morning coffee. I can find the joy in on my walk to work. When you can wake up and do those things and kind of shift your mindset into that mentality of like, this pattern of darkness and grayness and shadowiness is not going to be for me. That's where it's like, that's where your power is. And that's where it's like getting to wake up, getting to find the joy and find the light is so powerful when you choose to do those things every day. And I love that
Yeah,
poem.
and it honestly made a huge impact on me. So that next few months, I relentlessly was applying for jobs. I spent the next 2.5 months applying, interviewing with 40 plus companies on a quest to find a job that both was a good fit for me and also obviously like a good fit for them. And
Yeah.
ended up finding this opportunity where I'm at now that's just been a miraculously great fit and just exactly what I was looking for. Really great job, kind people, and just showed me that persistence and looking for the light even when things were challenging and like fighting back against that victim mentality made a huge difference to where I am now. And I think that I am right now, it being January and being the battleground winter months, in that same exact quest of how do I battle this victim mentality. I went through a breakup a few months ago and then just to being where I'm at now and we see winter, it gets dark really early, it's cold. I'm having to reclaim what that looks like and finding joy in every day. So I feel like it's an ongoing journey of realizing when things feel hard and what can you do to reframe that.
Yeah. So how does it feel to kind of look back of, so you said you were like last year you were in a different place than you are today, but you still kind of it's like the victim mentality kind of has like shifted maybe slightly. Like how does it feel to look back and then like kind of see where you are today?
Ooh, that is a really good question. I think looking back, it's so amazing to see the areas where you really fought for your future self. I look back at myself and I had no idea how things were going to work out. A lot of things didn't feel very hopeful. A lot of things felt unsure. And where I'm at now is like a dream of what I could have hoped for back then. And I think to myself, I'm so grateful that I kept a positive attitude, that I kept relying on the people who loved me and opened up to them and asked for their support. I'm grateful that I showed up for myself, that I, was working out every day, kept reading and learning, that I didn't give up on growing for my own accord. I'm grateful that I believed in myself, that I just kept going instead of feeling like, you know what, this is really tough. I'm going to give up, or I'm just going to take a month to, I just kept going and I'm really glad I did.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I love to hear that. Yeah, because I think it's like we can have our dark periods and stuff. Like it's always time to like. I always think like when you're having a dark period, it's like you're grieving something. Like you're grieving like the loss of a dream, the loss of a relationship, and so sometimes you do need to take a step back and heal yourself and mourn a little bit. But there is a time where you're like, I do need to like kind of like step up every day for myself, even if it's those small little things. You're like, I gotta go do this 30-minute workout, or I want to go read in a coffee shop. Just like doing something for yourself that pushes you a little bit closer to that dream self, that future self, I think is so amazing.
I was actually going to ask you that, Jordan, is I'm like continually so impressed by the way you show up for yourself. I mean, you obviously show up really beautifully for the people in your life, of which I'm really grateful for, but I see the way you so diligently show up for yourself and your dreams on a daily basis. And I'm wondering, like, what is the core theme in you, like, that keeps that going? Like, what is the like driving force that says don't quit, keep going, and keeps you so focused on growth and reaching your goals?
But that is such a good question. It's been turned on me. I'm usually the one asking questions. Yeah, well, I think for me, it's the fact that, and that's why I kind of named the podcast Taking Up Space, is for most of my life, I was told that I needed to be a specific way. I was told I was being too loud. I was told that I had too much attitude. I remember I was corrected one time in grade school because it's like, I don't want to stereotype, but I feel like it's a very characteristic thing for a lot of Black women. They do like the head nod. And it's just like, we're just talking. Like, I'm doing it right now. But I got called out. I was told that I had an attitude. And I went through, like, fast forward, I went through a breakup slash divorce. I had to sell my house that I thought was going to be my dream house. And I basically had to give up this life of this dream that I thought I had. And then I realized it wasn't my dream. I realized it was like somebody else's dream, and I just happened to be cosplaying. And I wasn't a very good actress for that dream. So my driving force is that I do everything now to live the dream life that I personally want to live. And so anytime I feel like a sense of this doesn't feel like me, this doesn't feel like the person that I want to be, then I just take a step back and I ask myself like, who's saying these things? Like whose words are these? Because I had so many people for so long telling me to be a specific way, like to dress a certain way, to act a certain way, be this certain person. And then when basically life blew up, so to speak, I was left with zero. And I was like, oh, I get to just be who I want to be now. Like literally the sky has fallen. The worst thing that could happen happened. Lost my house, lost my partner or person I thought was supposed to be my partner. And now I get to rebuild the way I want to rebuild. And so it was kind of like, it wasn't necessarily like a reset button because reset buttons don't exist, but it was the closest I would will say that I've ever come to like I just got to hit reset on everything.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of been the driving force is that I just want to live my life for me, and um it's been a really nice change of pace to not like I still have people's voices, I still have people's criticisms, and I still have fears and stuff like that, but not letting that bring me down like it used to. It's like when I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I did that yesterday. Yeah. Like I'm like, all right. Like it just kind of keeps me going and keeps me motivated. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. What I really love that sticks out to me from what you shared and what you didn't share is that despite like your focus being on making that dream life for yourself, and while you've done that, you've also like become this person and chosen this platform to empower others in a way that you might have needed in the past, or be the
Yeah.
voice that you might have been looking for and that other people can turn to now, which I think is really really cool. And I love that you share your story and that you um, are doing the work that you're doing,
Thank you.
because I think it's really awesome.
Yeah. Which this I will say this is also a plug because I always like to put this in as on podcast episodes where it's relevant. Go to therapy. Like
Oh, period. Yeah.
every person should ever go to therapy. Like it doesn't matter if you're in a dark place or bright place. I don't care. Go to therapy. Like 12 sessions will change your life. I'm still in therapy. Yeah. But always like to plug it because I feel like a lot of times people think that they can do everything on their own. Sometimes it's just like you can't, and sometimes you do need to ask for help, and that sometimes is in the form of a licensed medical professional.
That
That's
part.
super, super important for people to remember that.
Also in therapy on a weekly basis. Do not know how I would live my life without that. Look forward to it every week and dread it at the same time because you know you're
Yeah.
like diving in deep. And I have had to battle 1% crush on my therapist in the last few months. And that has been an ongoing challenge. And I think it's due to the, emotional vulnerability, but
Yeah.
it's going well. It's going great.
Yeah. They're like the most emotional, vulnerable that you'll ever be is with that human being.
Right.
In my opinion, because I'm like, even with like even my most vulnerable self with like a partner, I'm like, I hope to one day get close to that level of emotional vulnerability that I was with that I am with my therapist. So
Probably not. Yep.
yeah, but
Yep.
probably not, because I mean, we gotta keep some things close to the chest.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
When did you first feel like you were starting to like step into your power? Like Sam Cahoon's feeling powerful. When did that or if you haven't had that feeling, which is totally okay, what do you think that stepping into your power feels like?
Yeah, a whole story comes to mind. I grew up all through elementary school. I was known as the singing busboy. I was always singing in class. I was singing on the bus. I was singing in the classroom. I was whistling. I was humming. I had really, really, really severe ADHD to the point where I couldn't focus. I really struggled with friendships. I was getting notes sent home almost every single day. And I didn't grow up with older siblings or older cousins, so I didn't really understand, you know, how to be social, how to make friends. I didn't really understand my place in the world. Every recess I would spend alone, either running the school track or just jump roping. And then I remember hopping into middle school and having kind of evolved thoughts from there of thinking, seeing all the kids in student council and thinking, you know what, I don't think I'll ever be a leader. And although I was starting to make some sweet friends, I never saw myself as someone who, had that word power in any concept. And I was just working to even get to the point of feeling worthy of friendship, worthy of being known, and figuring out who I was. And so I think that's like been part of my whole life, a journey of finding my power, finding my self-worth, and finding my voice. And for context, for anyone who doesn't know me, I grew up Mormon. I attended BYU. My entire family and extended family is Mormon. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. Family's based in Washington, and I grew up between Washington and Idaho in a very, very Mormon conservative household that, although it was so, so loving, strictly reinforced those Mormon concepts, lifestyle, and life path. And so the first time that I really, really, really came into my power was when I embraced my queer identity, embraced my voice, and decided that I wanted to live my life for me and also to be the person that I always needed when I was younger. And I think that is like what strongly guides me now. So it was January of 2021. I had just graduated from BYU December of 2020 after going through all that and so much different struggles of trauma and uh, just being told I couldn't be who I was. At BYU, you can be kicked out if you are openly queer, dating, which is horrific and still the case. And so when I came out in 2021, I had also just had a relationship end, which was in the closet. I was dating someone who was closeted at the time. And I said, okay, I'm out of this institution. I'm out of this relationship. And now I want to like fully be myself. I had my public coming out and I really started to find my voice. I started focusing on advocacy, whether it was working with things like in Circle House or out for undergrad or the Trevor Project, volunteer opportunities, to also just sharing my voice on social media, sharing my story, and just really learning more about the person that I wanted to become. So I started focusing on myself. I was studying for the GRE every day because I knew I wanted to get into a future MBA program. I was focusing on the friendships that really mattered in my life. And by focusing on myself and my goals and the person that I wanted to be rather than society's expectations or that religion's expectations or the person I was dating's expectations, friends, school, anything, I started to live life for me. And I think that's when I really started to lean into my voice. And I think that it's been an ongoing journey since then. And now I feel like I'm at this point where my very strongest trait about myself and what really gives me the strength I have is my sense of identity and knowing exactly who I am. I think like going back to things like therapy and friendships and really hard struggles throughout life have given me the time to self discover and to understand what my values are, the person that I am and want to be, the people that I want to spend time around, the energy that I want to be a part of, and kind of going back to that Glennon Doyle quote of understanding I never again want to be in a room or situation where I have to dull my light or not be myself. And I don't know exactly how the quote goes. It's so much better, but I think just understanding that I want to live my life as authentically me as possible really gives me my power now.
That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story. One thing that you said that like really stuck out to me is, I mean, all of it stuck out to me, but one thing that really stuck out to me is you said like being the adult that you needed. And I think that that can be such a like eye-opening moment for a lot of people. Is it's like it's not about like the fact that like you mentioned you came from a loving home and stuff, but it's like our parents aren't going to get everything right. And so when we get to finally like embrace who we are, we get to feel like so connected not only with like our inner child, but we just get to feel so grounded in the fact that we're like, this is me. And that can feel like such a like, it's like one of those things where you're like, you kind of like feel your chest and your shoulder, you just relax. You're like, oh, I like, you like shed off this like person that you used to be. And you're like looking around and you're like, it's like when you get like a facial. Your like skin feels so good. You're like, oh my God, I can breathe. And that's so amazing. So when you did, it sounds like you're kind of like you're stepping into like your power and like living authentically. It sounds like that was like kind of when you that happened when you were like coming out and everything. How does that transition or that how does that translate now to like your everyday life? Like you had kind of this big moment of this is me. How do you have like little moments where you like capture your power or showcase your power even to yourself or to other people?
Yeah, I think that I reclaim, find, show my power when I remember who I am and reclaim my sense of identity. It's that quote that's like, wake up and remember who the you are. I have this belief that means remembering or figuring out who you are. And so I have this theory that like you forget about your power or use it when one, you've just never found it to begin with. I think of like little me, or
Yeah.
two, when you've just forgotten it, when you are in the daily throes of life and you start to forget like your innate worth and what a badass you are. To three, if you outsource your power to other sources. I think of when I outsourced my power to religion or, familial or friends or societal expectations. Or even something like outsourcing your power to a relationship and the validation that can come from that. And so I think for me now, remembering my power means digging back into the things that bring me joy, that I stand for, my values. So it means doing that weekly therapy. It means hopping on Pinterest and scrolling at inspirational quotes. It means going to the gym and showing up for myself. It means taking the time to read the books that I want to read, to make time for the adventures that I want to go on, meet people that are at my level that inspire me and that I can learn from. And it's listening to the old music that you always loved growing up, is listening to new music now. I think it's just further discovering the things that make you you, and then embracing those in your daily life. So when you show up to work, obviously being strategic about the person that you are and show up as, but being yourself. When you go on a date, this is my favorite example. I have absolutely zero fear when it comes to dating these days, especially things like first dates, because I know that I'll get cute. I'll throw on a cute outfit, I'll my face will be done, but I am just showing up as myself every time. And I know that that's all I need to do, and that the right people, whether it's friendships or relationships, will find me and appreciate me for who I am. And so I think you really understand your power when you understand your identity and don't change it for others. Don't change it to meet others' needs or expectations. When you remember you are a magical light being, best believe I'm still bejeweled, and just embrace who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's thank you for the Taylor Swift. The little Swifty moment. Yeah, I think that is so I think a lot of it, especially like you mentioned, like kind of getting into like the monotony of like your everyday life, like that can kind of sometimes not necessarily like take away your power, but like you kind of forget to almost like check in on your power because you just like, I imagine like someone who's like a mom or a parent just in general, where it's like you have kids, you have kid pickup. Like I also like shout out to all the parents out there because I don't know how you guys are doing. Like I watch you guys go back and forth between like work, picking up kids, dropping them back off, going back to work. Don't know how you do it, but like it is very true that it's like you have to kind of have those moments, whether that's like journaling in the morning or meditating or just like having a conversation with yourself while you're brushing your teeth, where you're like, no, I am that bitch. I am powerful. I am a baddie. I am bejeweled. Like, it is important to have those little moments. I am curious though, just to kind of get like a little fun here. Is there like a character, like a fictional character that comes to your mind when you think of like someone that's like an inspiration for like stepping into their power?
Ooh, that is the best question. My number one role model by far is Brene Brown. And for the reason that she is so focused on vulnerability and how that allows you to have more courage, to have more connection, to be the person you want to be, to find the relationships you're looking for. I look at her and the way she shows up in the world, and I'm so inspired. And that's exactly the person I want to be,
Mm-hmm.
is someone that shows up with vulnerability in a courageous way.
Nice. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Mine is probably, well, I have one like real person, Kiki Palmer. I love Kiki Palmer. I feel
She's
like
amazing.
she's in this like renaissance period where like everybody's like remembering how incredible she is. And so she's like probably like if I ever could have like a dream guest, it would be like I'm manifesting that now. Like I don't know when it's gonna
Yes.
happen. Would love to have a conversation with Kiki Palmer on the podcast. But also though, like because I'm rewatching, I know it has this problematic motion moments. But I love Samantha from Sex and the City. Like if you take away like all of the like because I think she is like I think if you were to redo that show now, she would be a much stronger character. But like she is like she makes her own money, she has her own business, she is her own baddie, and I just love that she also like doesn't let her friends forget that like they're also powerful. And so she's kind of like every now and then when I'm feeling like a little bit of self doubt, I'm like Samantha wouldn't feel this. Like Samantha wouldn't feel this way. So
I'm
that's kind of
obsessed with that.
my bad. That's my baddie that I love to think about.
I love that.
So, a couple other questions for you. What's something that you wish more people understood about you or just understood about the world?
Ooh, okay. The first thing that I always go to on what I feel like I wish people understood about the world, huge like platform to my own values, is the concept of understanding everyone has a story, everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about, and so treat people with
Mhm.
kindness. Really, that's like banner on my gravestone. Let it be that to be kind because you don't know what people are going through, and they're going
Yeah.
through shit. Um, for me, I think if there's something that I wish people understood about me, and I think it would be that I am the person I am today because I have experienced the empathy of what it feels like to not fit in, to feel like the weird, strange kid, to feel like I didn't have friends, like I talked about earlier. And so that empowers me now to have the confidence to make friends, to feel worthy of love, to understand what it feels like to feel excluded, and the power of including others, the power of making other people feel seen. And so I think I really wish people understood the power of their own identity, and that if you feel like you're the one who doesn't have very many friends, then you can be that friend and you can make other people feel loved. And if you show up as yourself, you'll always find the connections and friendships you're looking for. I look here at my friendships here in New York, and I think, and I look at some of them specifically, and I feel like I'm so grateful for those friendships. And the only reason I've even been able to find those people is because of the person that I developed myself to be and the values that I focused on. And that allows you to meet the people that can meet you where you are. And so, and that applies to friendships in general. I mean, we could talk about Allison for days.
I mean, she'll listen to this episode. We could go ahead and just make her blush this whole entire time while she's listening. She's an Enneagram too. She's gonna love the words of affirmation right now.
That's a hard question. I'm wondering what's in your brain right now.
Yeah. I think yeah, for me, something that I wish more people understood is it's kind of also very similar to you is that we're all going through something. And I recently saw, I've been seeing it a couple of times like on TikTok and Instagram where it's like heal loudly because we almost lost you in the silence.
Hmm.
And I think that is something that I wish more people understood is that just because the person over there is smiling and laughing and like maybe they seemingly are having a good time, they could be really going through something. Um, and like you said, like being kind, being open and honest uh is really truly a strength for people to have. And I think leaning into not feeling like you're the weird kid, not feeling like you are the black sheep. I really hate the black sheep mentality because it's like I feel like that's born out of like our childhoods and like being different from our family and stuff. But just learning to kind of I wish people more understood that we all are going through things and just giving someone a smile, just waving to somebody, just acknowledging them. Because I remember there were so many times I've talked about this a little bit on the episode, past episodes where like I went through a very very dark depression during like my like selling my house and stuff like that, and that's actually when I met Allison. Allison met me when I was probably at one of my lowest points, and we both worked at a company at the time that was not very friendly to people that looked like me. Um, and she sorry, Allison. She kind of looked like a lot of the other people that worked there. And so I assumed that she was going to be like the same type of person. Lo and behold, she's like my bestie now. And so I was very, very wrong because she is one of the most kind people I've ever met. Her just saying, like, her just checking in with me on some days. Like, she didn't have to do that. She would just message me on Slack and just be like, hey, how are you? Or like, hey, that meeting looked like it didn't go that well. Like, are you okay? Do you need a chat? And it was like, I'm sure maybe out of professional courtesy at one point, but she didn't have to do that. And then now she's stuck with me because she asked me if I was okay. But yeah, so I think that's kind of one thing that I wish people more understood is that one act of kindness will could change somebody's life and could change somebody's day.
I love that so much, and I love your friendship, and I'm so grateful you two have empowered each other and supported each other and are, that's amazing. I think we'll do a little Allison tribute. Now, I think of my time at BYU when, I'm obviously very, very closeted. I am figuring things out for myself. I'm figuring out like the kind of life I want to live and if I'll ever be able to embrace my career identity. I'm struggling with those intersections of religion and sexual identity, my family and church's expectations, and just struggling. And I remember coming out to Allison for the first time and then having her be such a major source of support through that journey of my time at BYU. And whether it was first dating experiences, her covering up my first hickey with foundation, to so funny, to navigating my first relationships and breakups while at BYU, to helping me come out, helping me figure out, all things Mormonism, just being an amazing source of support. And I think that those people that show you kindness when you're down or when you're struggling, those are champions. And I really am so grateful for Allison now and then, and those people that lift you up when you are going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be, I think that's also one of the things that can be so like such a powerful act as yourself is when you can not only choose the friends in your life that are going to be there to support you, but also be able to ask them for help and be able to ask for their like support and their kindness because unfortunately people don't have to be kind in this world. And people, a lot of the times, I think, can choose hate and choose rejection versus just having a moment to like be curious. Even if you can't relate to somebody's problems or can't relate to somebody's issues or what they're going through, like just being able to be there for them because they're asking for help and just be like, hey, like, I don't have experience in this, but would love to help explore and navigate this with you. Just having a buddy to do that because otherwise you start to feel like you're on an island if you are especially those big things like for you coming out that wasn't something you were like all right, I'm out now, and like there was still so much stuff that you had to navigate with that, and there was coming out with yourself and then there was coming out to the world or your friends and then to the world, like, and you get to choose who you share that information with, but then it's also like just being able to be like I have these friends that are here to support me and love me and care for me, and I was able to have like this moment of vulnerability with them, that kind of builds up your own power because you're like I can do this, I can be this person and be accepted and be loved, because I think that's the most scary part for a lot of people when they choose to step into their power and choose to be their authentic selves is they're afraid of being rejected by people in their life. And so I guess that's kind of why and I guess one of my questions is for what have you done when you have faced maybe that rejection or stumbled when you were trying to kind of live that authentic version of yourself? What did you try to do to kind of like navigate that for anybody out there that might be struggling with stepping into their power?
Well, that's a good question. I'm going to pause for a second.
Also, just want to say you're.
Ah, I'm dead. Thank you. Real recognize, real recognize. Okay, I have a little bit of an answer. Okay, so to your question of when you are being your authentic self, if you are facing things like rejection or feeling like you're disappointing people, a few of the things that come to mind are one, especially with the queer community, finding your chosen family and those friends that are there to champion you, of which I know we're both really familiar with that concept and how beautiful that is. Finding those people that are there on the good days and the bad days when you're struggling, when you're succeeding, to both cheer you on or comfort you. Second is being your own best friend. Loving yourself the way you need, and that's a continual ongoing thing. For me, I try to take myself on really fun dates and adventures. I do things that I know I need to feel loved, to give myself those love languages: quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, service. Who is she? I don't know. But trying to love myself the way I really need to be loved. And then third, recognizing that you can't always change other people. I know when I first was going through a little bit of my career coming out journey and trying to figure things out with family and how challenging that was, there were so many moments that were extremely difficult and where I was still given so much love, but it was still so nuanced. And this is very new to my family and something that they were having to really reconcile with and figure out. And it's been many, many years in the making. But I feel so lucky to be at a place now where through an ongoing loving relationship, curiosity, hard conversations, asking questions, expressing mutual respect and empathy, we're at a place now where we want happiness for each other. And I want my family who is LDS to find so much joy, and I want to be so respectful of their religion and their beliefs, and I want them to succeed, to find the joy they're looking for. And I love that now they look to me, and although still figuring things out, they champion me and want me to find the love and joy that I'm looking for. They want to understand more about what's going on in my life, and how's dating going, how's friendship, how can I support you. And I really feel so loved, and I think that is because of ongoing conversations, curiosity, and a commitment to loving each other even when things are hard.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. I think that's what it all comes down to is just being loved and loving people and being curious and being open to love. I mean, I think I think a lot of us get kind of caught up in this idea of what we think love is supposed to be. But if you just practice curiosity and allow like love to kind of find you, you'd be surprised in how it can show up for you in ways that you never would have expected. I feel like that can be, so powerful to just be open to that type of world.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I just wanted to see, is there anything that you want to like promote? Any like you've mentioned a couple of organizations, which I will get all those from you that you volunteered with for, and advocated for. So I'll get those information for you. So those can be down in the description. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of like advertise or promote or anything?
Yeah, I have one piece of homework for anyone listening, and it's my very favorite thing. I think that right now, January through March, these are like the battleground months where you're like, okay, there's hardly any holidays. It is a struggle.
Yes.
It's cold. It's dark. And that's where the victim mentality really tries to like attack you. And so, rightfully so, like it's challenging.
It's hard.
I think that like making yourself a winter success guide full of self-given holidays and fun activities is like my key. So I just did this with my grandma. My grandma
Aw.
is one of my besties, Grandma Cahoon, and she is actually newly a widow, which is really challenging and figuring out what life looks like on her own now. She lives in rural Oregon, and her and I worked on ours together, our winter success guides. And so it's like making fun things to do every week that center around adventure, on connection, on curiosity. So for my grandma, it was like invite some friends over, write a card to an old friend, make this new like pasta dish recipe. For me, it's like go to this new museum, check out these art galleries, invite a friend to go try some like fun, Ukrainian cuisine or something like that. And so that is your challenge, is if you feel like the next few months are dreary, create a really fun guide for yourself full of adventure and to spend time doing the things that you really love doing and find some more magic in these challenging months. But I just
love
wanted to thank you, Jordan, for having me on your pod. I am so inspired by you and the way you show up in the world with so much courage and authenticity. And I am beyond honored to be your bestie-in-law, and I'm always cheering you on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It has been so good to get to know you more, and hear more of your story and hear just like where you're coming from when it comes to life. And yeah, I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day in the big old New York City. And hope you get to go see a museum or eat some Ukrainian food.
Deal. I hope you have a beautiful day too, Jordan, and can't wait to catch up with you soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.